doing it in new ways that have been done historically, but then also tweaking them, and then how these views can start to frame moments, and using like kind of elements of the architecture in new ways. Here you can see one resort that's part of this area. So the geometries, the proportions, the scale look like it could be there for hundreds of years, but it's really something new, but at the same time, part of the history and the place. So here you can see like a little chapel that emerges out of the rock face using the stone itself, and then how the buildings can be broken down into the area. Here you can see under construction, and hopefully that village will be done shortly. This is a tower that we're doing in Tirana, which is the capital of Albania. And, you know, we're kind of mixing the concrete with the local materials, the earth, to give the building a sensibility of its place, and then playing around with textures and patterns that have been inspired by ancient Turanian geometries, Albanian geometries in their carpets and weavings. And then also manipulating and using the earth in this way. This is a golf clubhouse that we built in Jordan. So we got to the site and we saw dunes, and we basically said, you know, let's try to figure out how to inhabit those dunes. So here you can see the sort of structural geometries of how you can basically build a dune. So this is the clubhouse. So basically taking the material, mixing it with cement, and creating architecture that's kind of a little bit rough, which we wanted, and integrating it within the landscape itself. So here you can see the construction of this. It was all done by hand, which is very interesting, with only one machine, which was to pump the cement. And then we worked with this really wild local artist who would take minerals from the area, cobalt, gold dust, and mix it into this beautiful palette, and which would create this basically an inhabited landscape. So this is basically the earth that has been turned into architecture. And you can see here some photos with the sort of minerals and the richness in the ceiling that you can see from the artist. So really taking everything of the surroundings and mixing it into a local architecture, celebrating patterns of Islamic architecture as well, with an image of one of the final buildings kind of integrated into the landscape. We really have a lot of fun working in the deserts. This is a resort we're doing for Six Senses outside of Riyadh. So we had this really unique bluff landscape, and we built on top of the ridge. And then you enter the hotel from this valley and come across this large wall, and that the resort is above there, up on the upper level. And this is how you enter into the hotel, into this courtyard, with light coming from down below, carved out of the rock. And then you take a room-sized elevator up to the lobby, where you're framing views of sunset and other elements of the landscape. So the architecture is inspired by the DNA of the Naji architecture from ancient Saudi Arabia. This is like the homeland of the ruling family. So it's trying to bring up all the kind of spirit of that place. We create this wonderful amphitheater, and then, you know, spa pavilions, but really using like the earth within the architecture itself. So all the materials are mixed and integrated within the landscape. So the building becomes one, and then using ancient techniques of ceilings and other materials and carved plasters, really creating something that has been here for hundreds of years, but doing it in a new way. Here you can see a private pool framing the landscape of this resort. And then one of the last projects is a project that we've been working on for probably about 7 years. This is also in Saudi Arabia. They took us into the desert and they asked us to find where we would want to do a resort. And after days of searching and drinking a lot of water, I came across this incredible mountain of rock. And I said, like, well, we want to do the resort here. And they're like, okay, do it. And we came up with this idea of this resort within that natural landscape, carved into the rock, integrated into the rock. And they said, okay, well, took a couple years to get them to convince, but then we ultimately did it. And, we're fully under construction. So here is, the rock's about 750 feet tall at its highest point. So we're building into this incredible monolithic structure. Down below, you can see a spa. That's this building. But once again, integrating within the landscape, using the rock, using the materials, and creating a harmonious balance between the built and the natural. So here you can see the building on the left and the rock on the right becoming one. Here are villas that are kind of carved into the rock or built around with the rocks. Here you can see a detail of that. So creating almost like this future primitive architecture. So it's almost like a bit of the Flintstones, but a bit of the Jetsons as well. This is carving into like sort of natural geometries that existed within the rock itself. So everything is kind of using the existing crevices and nooks and crannies to build these rooms that are carved out of that landscape. So really exciting project. Here's like a private swimming pool that is within these natural crevices. And then how you enter the building, that's not a big rock we found, but we're making that rock out of concrete mixed with the rock and the sand of the area. Here you can see, probably from about 8 months ago, construction video, the carvings of these units. There's probably about 2,000 people here bringing this dream to reality. So it's really exciting to see how 7 years can turn into a reality. So hopefully this resort will be open within the next 18 to 24 months. And lastly, another project that we're working on in Saudi Arabia, they brought us out into the Red Sea and asked us to do this resort surrounded by these incredible reefs. So we wanted to create sort of an invisible architecture, one that would be very delicate on the environment. So everything would be built off-site and doesn't touch the reef, but we're actually building new reefs. So you can see everything on the right's kind of a new reef, and then the buildings exist as like pods floating above the sea. And building it off-site allows us to kind of create minimal impact on the natural environment. So here you can see how these pods begin to disappear and blend with their surroundings. And they also actually amplify growth of the reef below with the reflection of light. And then how it exists kind of within the water, pool area, entry to the hotel with a natural mangrove, and then one of the rooms floating above the sea. And then how we're building these spaceships almost in a facility in Dubai. So the idea is not only to come up with the ideas, but how to figure out how to do them. So this is one of the room pods being built like a ship would be built. And you can see the sort of beauty of its invisibility. And then a whole fleet of them being ready to ship out. Someone actually found this image and thought it was the U.S. government actually having UFOs. So that was someone sent it to me. They're like, "Oh," and then there were a whole bunch of comments. They're like, "You idiots! This is a hotel in Saudi Arabia." So here you can see how it's actually getting installed. Really exciting to kind of see these flying saucers come out. Actually, the architecture of this became inspired by the invisibility.
It will just be stunning.
But it was actually inspired by this book that just became a series called The Three Body Problem, which you might have seen on Netflix. So it wasn't in the movie, or the show, but there was something in the book that was about these objects that were very reflective. So that gives you kind of a taste of what we're able to do with the materials and our notion to kind of blend within spaces and really create an integrated landscape. So I come up with the crazy ideas, but I have a lot of great people who bring these dreams to reality, between working in the States, people, and also throughout Europe. So it could not be done without them. So thank you for listening to me so early in the morning. And I don't know if there was any time for questions, but I'll be around. And I appreciate you coming out. Thank you.